Well, good afternoon. Thank you very much. You may be seated. I do want to say it's indeed an honor to welcome educators to an Education White House. Thank you very much for coming here today. Educators are always welcome here. The American people are always welcome here. Before I begin my remarks, I do want to touch on something, and this is just a move to ensure that we do have continuity going on in the education department. I do want to announce that I know that the confirmation process for Secretary Designate Gonzalez is going through the Senate process right now. We're waiting for a vote coming up here shortly, but there are some pressing matters over education that need to be taken care of. And so I have appointed Maria Secretary Gonzalez as acting education secretary, effective immediately. She will take the reins of the education department and until her confirmation vote is done, and at which time she'll be fully education secretary under this administration. So, and I don't think I even told you yet, Madam Secretary, but thank you very much for your patience with this. I'm glad that you're with us on board now. If you want to leave, you can go ahead and get to work, but you're welcome to stay here as well. But, you know, seriously, folks, we are gathered here in the East Room today because what happens in our schools isn't just about education. It's about whether our children have the foundation they need to learn, to grow, and thrive. And right now, too many children, especially in suburban and rural districts, are showing up to school hungry or worried about whether there will be milk in the cafeteria. And that is a real concern. Hard to believe in the most powerful nation in the world that that is a concern that we have. And we fixed it. We fixed it. But let me be clear, no child in America should have to wonder if they'll get a nutritious meal at school, period. End of discussion. Every day of this administration, that this administration is in power, education is a priority. It is very important. And we have to realize sometimes we may lose focus on this. We need to realize that the kids in our classrooms are our future. They're worth the investment. You know, we've seen reports of districts struggling with supply chains, rising costs. In some cases, schools forced to buy milk from retail stores at much higher prices. That is unacceptable. And that's not that's not acceptable at all in this country. We're the greatest country in the world. We are the United States of America, and yet we can't supply our schools with basic nutrition. When I first heard when I first heard about that about a month or so ago, I heard about what happened. This administration took effective action immediately to ensure that that was taken care of. And within days, maybe close to a week or so, that situation was resolved in our country. And there may still be pockets of it going on throughout the country, but it's being fixed. And that's why it's so important. It's so important that we move with Secretary Gonzalez, and that's why I did what I did today by appointing her acting secretary. You know, and there are schools, there are people, working families, kids, suburban families, rural families, families who go to work every day and expect their tax dollars to deliver basic, reliable support for the children's education and nutrition. Think about it. Think about it. Think about how much you pay in school taxes. We do it back home in DeSoto. I'll tell you, we do it. We do it. And I expect my school tax money to be used wisely. In our city, we have schools sitting there not being utilized. We need to fix that, not only in my hometown, but in every city in this country, in every state in this country. You know, we need to increase education spending. Education spending is not just another item on the fiscal year budget. It is a priority. In this administration has taken education as a priority. It is one of the top priorities. It is so important. You know, and I just don't understand. There are working families, kids, suburban families, rural families go to work every day and expect their tax dollars to deliver reliable, basic support for their children's education and nutrition. And just think about it. You you drop your kid off every day at school, and you're hoping that when you pick up your child at the end of the day, that they get a reliable education, a quality education, and they get fed a nutritious meal for breakfast and lunch. We're falling short on that too. The nutrition guidelines in this country have not been updated since the Obama administration. That's got to change. That's got to change. Too many of our kids, too many of our school kids are getting lunch and dumping it in the trash. They're throwing away tax money because they don't like what they're eating. Let's fix that problem. Let's fix it. Because if we fix a nutrition problem, we will start to fix the education problem. Because these kids cannot learn on empty stomachs. They can't do it. And we should fix that. On top of other things too, we need to work on teacher salaries. Teacher salaries, to become a teacher sometimes to become a teacher, it's a calling. It's a calling. But so many of our teachers in this country are having to take second jobs just to afford to live. And that's not right. That's not right. And that's why it's such a high priority under my administration. You know, we've all talked about, you've heard about family first. And let me talk about how we're supporting that with our education program. We're fixing the broken supply chains. We did that so far on one item so far. So schools can get consistent, nutritious food at stable prices. We're investing in school infrastructure, including better kitchen storage and grid reliance. So districts aren't thrown into chaos every time there's a storm or a price spike. That's what part of what caused the supply chain issue. There was a change in nutrition guidelines that weren't properly timed, and when it happened, it hit the suppliers that didn't have enough milk to supply our schools. There wasn't foresight in planning this. That's got to end. That's got to end. You know, we're also pushing for full funding equality so suburban schools, which educate the majority of our children, aren't left behind, and buildings aren't sitting there left behind and empty. We're supporting our teachers because a well-nourished child in a well-supported classroom is how we build the future. And it is. You think about, and it goes back to economics. It goes back to economics, and it goes back to well, there's a lot of things it goes back to, but I just want to say the economics. We need to fix the economics of this country where it shouldn't be a crisis to be able to put food on your table. That shouldn't be an issue. And that's another thing that we're working on in this administration is ensure, on top of education, that everybody can afford to live. Everybody can afford to live. And to every parent watching, I see the stress when your child comes home and tells you there wasn't enough food at lunch, or they threw it away, or when the school sends a note about supply problems. We're fixing that. We're fixing that. To the mayors, the superintendents, teachers, parents, and nutrition experts at this table today, thank you. Your voices are shaping real policy. And we're not here for that photo op or that shake of the hands. We're here to solve problems. Every child deserves to walk into school knowing that he'll have a nutritious meal and a fair shot at success. That's not a luxury. It's a basic promise of this country, the greatest country in the world. I want to thank you very much for your time. May God bless you. May God bless the United States of America, and may He protect our troops. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you.